Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam, and we are also joined by my colleague Ellie, and we are here representing the Clean BC Community Energy Coach program. Our program supports communities, local governments, and industry stakeholders in the promotion of the Clean BC rebate programs, as well as the education of heat pumps. We will be sharing a number of resources on heat pumps today, including rebate information. And this webinar, of course, is being recorded. So all the rebate amounts that are being discussed today is reflective of what is available today, April 28th, 2022. So for the most up-to-date information on rebates, please visit betterhomesbc.ca. For everyone joining, the chat box will be open and active for questions. So I'll be monitoring the chat and do my best to answer your questions along the way. So please stay curious and ask lots of questions. We are also joined by a handful of folks today with the Tri-Cities. So we have Laura Samplinier, the Senior Sustainability and Energy Coordinator with the City of Port Moody, as well as Ryan Voon, the Sustainability Program Specialist with the City of Coquitlam, as well as Clarissa Huffman, the Environmental Coordinator with the City of Port Coquitlam. We'd also like to take a brief moment to acknowledge with respect the Coast and Strait Salish and WSÁNEĆ peoples on whose traditional unceded territory we are presenting today, as well as the Lekwungen, Songhees, Esquimalt, and WSÁNEĆ, whose historical relationship with the land continue to this day. And now I'll hand things over to Laura.
Thanks so much, Sam, and welcome everybody. It's great to see such a good turnout and interest in heat pumps. So if you could just click once more for the little animation there on the slide, thank you. So Port Moody has a climate action plan that was adopted in the summer of 2020, outlining 54 actions that the city can take to become a carbon neutral, climate resilient community by 2050. And as staff are implementing the plan, it's important that we focus on actions that have the largest impact. So we do this by understanding where our greenhouse gas emissions come from in our community. So our individual and collective daily activities result in releasing greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, including transporting people and goods, heating and cooling buildings, and heating hot water, and purchasing goods and materials that ultimately end up in our landfill or being disposed. So you can see from the pie chart that most of our community emissions in Port Moody are a result of vehicles, and then heating and cooling buildings are the second. So after we've taken a closer look, we found that 46% of emissions from buildings come from single family homes, followed by commercial buildings, which was interesting to understand. And there's really three key reasons why buildings are an important sector to focus on as we tackle climate change. And the first one being that buildings make up a significant portion of those community greenhouse gas emissions. But there's also a lot of available and proven solutions today that can drastically reduce emissions in buildings. And then lastly, humans spend most of their time in buildings, whether it be at home or work or in between. They can have a significant impact on our health and our happiness in our daily lives. So next slide. So one of the things, oh, and sorry, you could just advance the little animation there. Thank you. Port Moody is developing now a climate ready homes and buildings plan that will outline specific actions that the city residents and business owners can take to make homes and buildings more climate ready. And so you might be wondering, what does climate ready actually mean? And that means that the building meets low carbon and high energy efficiency standards, and that we can manage many of the risks related to climate change, such as heat related illness, poor indoor air quality, or damages from flooding or windstorms. So the screen shows some really key targets that Port Moody is working towards. And you may then be wondering from that what you as a resident can do to support this. And so we'll be talking about some of the solutions today in the presentation. But one important thing to remember is that electric heating results in more than 90% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions compared to natural gas heating due to BC's clean, renewable hydroelectricity. And so today represents an important opportunity for residents to learn about climate-friendly solutions that you really have a big control over and can have major impacts on greenhouse gas reductions. So I'll leave it there and pass it back to Sam or on to Ryan.
Thanks so much, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan, and I'm a sustainability program specialist at the City of Coquitlam. And we're very excited to be collaborating with Port Moody, Port Coquitlam, and Clean BC Better Homes to provide this heat webinar to the Tri-Cities communities. And thank you for joining us today. So just wanted to briefly share what the City of Coquitlam has been up to in regards to our sustainability plans, the strategies, and how heat pumps connect to sustainability in Coquitlam. So the city's environmental sustainability plan was unanimously approved by council in January 2022. And this plan incorporates the city's environmental goals, objectives, and actions into one overarching strategy that will provide a clear and flexible framework to help guide future decisions, ensuring the long-term resiliency and sustainability of our community. So the ESP is broken down into 5 themes, as you can see here, with themes related to climate action and our built environment, which includes our homes and buildings. And as part of the ESP's approval, the city has updated our greenhouse gas reduction targets to be in line with international, federal, and provincial targets. So as you can see here, Coquitlam has targeted a 45% reduction of GHG emissions by 2030 and targeted to be carbon neutral by 2050. So the question is, how do we get there? Well, the city is developing a climate action plan, and this is one of the top 10 actions that arose from the environmental sustainability plan, and it's going to be advanced in 2022. It will incorporate emerging best practices, innovative technology, and prioritize actions to achieve the city's climate change targets. So if we go to the next slide here, I just wanted to quickly share the city's community GHG emissions that we've included in the environmental sustainability plan. So as you can see here, 24% or almost a quarter of the city's community greenhouse gas emissions are from residential buildings. And one of the ways to really reduce these emissions is to switch from fossil fuels, such as natural gas, to electricity, which, as Laura has mentioned, is a low carbon energy source in British Columbia. And heat pumps can directly support the reduction of these emissions. And additionally, one of the added benefits of heat pumps is their ability to provide not only heating, but as well as cooling. And this can help us prepare for the heat-related climate events. And Clean BC will dive further into how this works during their presentation and what rebates and incentives are available. So if we head to the next slide, if you'd like to stay up to date on Coquitlam's environmental sustainability plan implementation or the climate action plan, visit coquitlam.ca/environment plan. You're also encouraged to stay informed by subscribing to email updates at letstalkcoquitlam/enviroplan. And finally, for more up-to-date information on energy upgrades and to stay up to date on rebates and grants to help lower the cost of your next home project, take a look at coquitlam.ca/energy upgrades. And with that, I'll pass it to Clarissa.
Great, thanks so much, Ryan. So as mentioned, my name is Clarissa Huffman, and I am the environmental coordinator for the city of Port Coquitlam. My portfolio really kind of captures both the environment side, so implementation of our environmental strategic plan, as well as the climate change side and the development of the city of Port Coquitlam's new climate action plan, because as you can tell, these two things are very closely related. So the plan, which is currently in development at the moment, is currently on track to be adopted by council in July of this year. This plan is intended to be a science-based plan that centers around a low carbon resilience approach to climate action, which really basically what that means is that we're looking to integrate ideal opportunities to achieve both climate mitigation or emissions reductions and climate adaptation, looking at how can we adjust how we do things in order to best set us up for success in the future based on what we expect might be some of the changes that we will see. Similar to my colleagues, this plan is based on international best practice around target setting. And what that means is our current draft targets are 50% by 2030 as our midterm target and carbon neutral by 2050 as our long-term science-based target. And the plan really, what it's designed to do is assess and respond to climate-related hazards and impacts on the 5 major sectors that you see on your screen here. So critical infrastructure, natural systems, health, well-being, and culture, economic development, and what is probably going to be the most interesting to folks on this call, which is housing. And so we've heard a lot so far about the role of housing and the ways that housing are impacting our overall emissions portfolios. Port Coquitlam's are very similar to what we've heard so far.
from other municipalities. But if we could just flip to the next slide, there'll be a little bit more detail for you. So what you can see here is that our buildings take up about roughly 1/3 of our overall emissions. And what's really interesting to note actually is you can see that percent change from 2017 or 2007 to 2018, showing that actually we were somewhat successful in achieving an emissions reduction at the building scale from the last time that we did this inventory work, which was during the corporate and community climate action planning in 2007. So some of the things that impacted that, as you can see on the bottom right corner, are really around building energy efficiency. So predominantly the implementation of the BC STEP code. However, you can see overall, we still had an overall emissions increase of 2% during that same time frame. So that really sends the message that even though we were able to achieve some modest reductions, there is still a ways to go for us to be able to successfully meet those mid and long-term science-based targets, which is part of the reason why we're here today. And next slide, please. Finally, I want to reiterate again that really what we're trying to do here is achieve that and access that portion of the market that can really focus on low carbon heating and cooling sources. And so you can see on the screen here that 92% of our buildings are currently heated with natural gas and only 8% are heated by electric sources. So therefore, switching to electric heating in our residential buildings is a massive leverage point that we could access to be able to reduce our emissions in our homes and buildings overall and continue on that same trajectory of energy efficiency in our buildings and emissions reductions overall. So I think I will leave it there and pass it back to Sam to really get into a conversation about heat pumps and see how you as residents can participate in this program. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. I'm actually going to take over. Hello, everyone. My name is Elena Dopfer, and I'm also part of the Community Energy Coach team. I'm really excited that so many of you took out, a chunk of your busy days to learn more about heat pumps, and we got quite some ground to cover. So I'm going to get started by telling you why you hear the word heat pump absolutely everywhere, and you see it in ads and you see so many rebates. Why we're so excited about heat pumps, how heat pumps work and how they're different from other heating systems. I'm going to introduce you to the two most common types of heat pumps that we see here in BC. And we're going to address some concerns that people usually have with heat pumps, share tips that you should know before you buy a heat pump, where you find contractors, where you find resources. And of course, we're going to go over the rebates. For everyone who's just joined in the last few minutes, my colleague Sam will answer all kinds of questions in the chat, but we will likely also have some time for some questions in the end. Okay, let's get started. So why do we love heat pumps so much? One of the main reasons is that we are, in a climate crisis. Climate change is very, very much here. We see the impacts of climate change, and so different governments adapt to the situation with strategy papers and policy making. So our strategy paper here in BC is called the Clean BC strategy. And specifically here, we also got kind of an interim plan, the roadmap to 2030. And this roadmap outlines strategies how we can lower our greenhouse gas emissions drastically to contribute to the overall net zero goal of 2050. There's tons of strategies in that paper, and one of them addresses buildings. Specifically, we're talking about decarbonization of buildings. And what we mean by decarbonization is to pretty much use low emission technologies in buildings instead of fossil fuel technologies. And the best low emission technology here in BC is a heat pump. So yeah, my colleagues here, they've touched on that, but buildings in BC actually represent quite a big chunk of the overall greenhouse gas emissions in our province and also in those 3 cities that you're from. And a lot of our buildings, actually over half of our buildings, are still heated with fossil fuels. And by fossil fuels, we generally mean oil, gas, propane. So really the best way to lower our emissions by 2050 or 2030 overall is to shift to heat pumps to heat and cool our homes. And BC Hydro, for example, is on board with that. They got their electrification plan on the way, which really just means electrifying buildings. So moving buildings away from fossil fuels to electric heating systems. And among the electric heating systems, you will learn why heat pumps are by far the most energy efficient. They have an energy efficiency of about 300 to 400%, which is absolutely amazing. In comparison, electric baseboards or an electric furnace has an efficiency of 100%. Yeah, so let's take a quick look at why heat pumps are so great. Beyond the efficiency, but the efficiency is their main reason because they are by far the most energy efficient heating system that you can possibly have worldwide. They're about 3 to 4 times as energy efficient as any other electric heating system or as a high efficiency gas furnace. And a really big factor is they provide year-round comfort. So you got a 2-in-1 heating and air conditioning system. In BC, they're also by far the most climate-friendly way to heat a home because they are powered by electricity, which here in BC, we're fortunate enough to get our electricity from hydropower. And a lot of people don't know this, heat pumps do actually provide air filtration and dehumidification. So it also really helps you have a healthier home. And for those of you who heat with gas, oil, propane, and switch to a heat pump, you would no longer pay carbon tax on your energy bills. And a lot of you probably know is that the carbon tax will steadily increase over the next few years to 2030. So heating with gas will actually become a lot less attractive and a lot more expensive over the next few years. But let's take a quick look at the efficiency again, because how is it possible that a heat pump is so much more efficient than any of the other high efficiency heating systems? So just as a reminder, electric baseboards, for example, they have an efficiency of 100%, and even a high efficiency natural gas furnace has an efficiency of about 97 to 99%. That's really great. However, what they do is they basically generate heat from scratch. So for a gas furnace, you burn a fuel to create heat energy. And for a 99% efficient gas furnace, only 1% of that energy is lost on the way. So that's pretty good. But what a heat pump does is instead of generating heat, heat pumps use heat that's already available in the ambient air. Even on a cold winter day, there's still heat energy in the ambient air that can be absorbed by a heat pump. And then it pumps it up to a higher temperature level, adding a little bit of extra electricity to power the compressor to, really compress it, pump it up to a higher temperature level, and move it to the inside of your home. So what a heat pump does differently is that it uses heat that's already available that doesn't need to be generated. It moves it from one place to another. And this is how a heat pump is so much more efficient than any other heating system that needs to generate heat from scratch. Because it is so much more efficient than any other electric heating system, it is by far the most cost-effective heating system among the electric ones. So, a lot of people might be a little bit worried about the operating cost because they think about electric baseboards or an electric furnace that can be costly to some people. But a heat pump uses about 3 to 4 times less electricity than electric baseboards to heat the home to the same temperature level. So that is a huge advantage of a heat pump. And I said it earlier, so the cooling aspect of a heat pump is a really, really great argument for a lot of people to consider this heating system. We've all been through the heat dome last year. Sam and I were in Victoria on the island, and it was so hot. As you know, I actually ended up sleeping in my own yard in a tent for 2 nights because I could not be in my home that doesn't have a heat pump. But I was really, really jealous of all the people I know who have heat pumps at home because they just switch it to the cooling mode and they felt a lot more comfortable and also a lot more safe because there were really some safety concerns for a lot of people, for their children, their pets, their elderly. So with a heat pump, those hotter summers, which are unfortunately a reality now, are going to be a lot more bearable. And I mentioned it, heat pumps are an electric heating system, of course. And here in BC, we get our electricity from hydropower. So it is a very low carbon technology. We got a little graph here where there's the same type of home modeled with an oil heating system, a gas furnace, and a heat pump. And it's really no surprise that obviously heating with oil is probably not a great idea for the climate. But even when you look at natural gas, it still has significant greenhouse gas emissions. So switching to a heat pump, you can really lower the emissions and your carbon footprint at home drastically. And that thing that a lot of people don't know is that heat pumps do provide air filtration. And not only do we get hotter summers with heat domes, we also have seen every summer basically has forest fires and the air gets smoky. Heat pumps can really, really help with that because they not only help rid your home of indoor pollutants or dust, pollen, allergens, if you have any people in the home who suffer from allergies, but they really also help with the forest smoke. So that helps you have a better indoor quality and again, help you have a safer and more comfortable home. I will introduce the different types of heat pumps in a second, but there are types that provide zonal heating, which pretty much just means that you can heat different areas of the home to different temperature levels. So it's a great option if you have any in-law or rental suites and you want to be able to have your tenants heat their suite to a different temperature level than you upstairs, or you want to keep your office nice and cool in the summer when you work from home, but keep the bedrooms cool or whatever it is. So that is a really, really great option with heat pumps. Heat pumps are actually very simple to use. I will explain the set it and forget it principle for you later. But yeah, you really enjoy the most efficient heating and cooling system, really low maintenance, and you basically set it to your temperature level and forget about it. To summarize that, heat pumps pretty much simply are the heating system of the future. This is where policy is moving. This is where the market is moving, and this is where people demand more cooling and more efficient heating systems. So we got this couple here from Saanich here on Vancouver Island, and they retrofitted their whole home. They wanted a more climate change resilient home and a more energy efficient home. So they not only got themselves an electric vehicle and solar panels on the roof, insulated their walls, but it was also really important to them to switch away from their old, I think it was an oil furnace, to a heat pump. And yeah, that's really simply the heating system of the future. Well, now that you know why we love heat pumps so much, I do want to quickly explain a little bit more how heat pumps work. And the easiest way to explain that to you is by using the example that you all have at home. Because really, your refrigerator at home pretty much is an insulated box with a type of heat pump in it. And I'll quickly explain how that works. So when you get your refrigerator here, inside there are refrigerant lines that give it the name, and that refrigerant can absorb the heat energy within your fridge. So it absorbs the heat, oh, where's my mouse? And then pumps it through a compressor that pumps it up to a higher temperature level and releases it to the inside the inside of your home. So when you look at what's behind your fridge, which, something that we all kind of try to avoid, but you will feel that there's warm air coming out from the back of your fridge. So what that heat pump or your refrigerator does is really absorbing heat from one place and moving it to another. And this is what the heat pump does as well. But I have to say, our colleague from BC Hydro, Dave from BC Hydro, who you've probably seen in ads, does a really, really great job explaining how heat pumps work. So I'm going to be quiet for a second and let Dave take it away.
Hey, it's me, Dave, and this is a heat pump. It's an energy-efficient heating and cooling system you can install at home. How does it work? Here, let me show you. Your typical air source heat pump, like this mini split system, has two main components, an indoor and an outdoor unit, which are connected by a refrigerant line. To heat your home in the winter, the outdoor unit pulls heat from the air outside your home. Yes, believe it or not, even when it's cold, outside air still contains a certain amount of heat. The warm air then goes through a refrigerant coolant that is compressed to increase the temperature even more. This warm air is then pushed through to the home. In the summer, to cool your home, the process is reversed. The heat pump absorbs the warm air in your home and transfers it outside. The compressor circulates refrigerant to the indoor evaporator coil, and the refrigerant absorbs heat as it passes over the indoor air. The resulting cool and dehumidified air then gets blown back into the home. And that's how a heat pump works. The key here is that heat pumps don't generate heat, but instead they move it from one place to another, which is why heat pumps are so energy efficient. In fact, a heat pump can be up to 300% more efficient than electric baseboards. So if you already have electric heat, a heat pump can help you save on your energy bill. Less energy and more savings? I like. If you're switching from a fossil fuel-based heating source like a natural gas furnace, you'll be reducing your carbon footprint. It's kind of like going from a size 18 down to a size 2. You get the idea. It's an environmentally friendly option, especially here in BC where we're powered by water. Plus, with rebates from Clean BC and BC Hydro, there's more to save.
All right, thank you, Dave. So yeah, he explained it perfectly. Really what a heat pump does, instead of generating heat, it moves heat from one place to another. So let's keep going here. So now that you know how a heat pump works, there are definitely all kinds of different types of heat pumps all over the world, but we see two types that are the most common in BC, and I'll introduce those to you. So the first one, we call them a central ducted heat pump, and it really explains what it is. It is a central heating system, just like a gas or an electric furnace, and it uses ductwork throughout the home. So when you look at this, it always comes with an outdoor unit that looks something like this, or like here in the picture. And in that outdoor unit, there's that compressor that absorbs, it absorbs heat energy from the ambient air here, pumps it up to a higher temperature level, moves it into the home, and then distributes it through ductwork throughout your whole home. And on a hot, humid summer day, it can absorb heat from the inside of the home and then move it to the outside. So that is the central ducted heat pump. Among those central ducted heat pumps, we have a certain type that's called dual fuel ducted heat pump. And dual fuel really just means that it's a heat pump that has an integrated gas or propane furnace. So it uses a natural gas or propane furnace as a backup heating system. You can set a certain temperature level, outdoor temperature level, and at that temperature, the gas furnace will take over from the heat pump and supplement it. So now you are all probably on the Lower Mainland, and luckily on the Lower Mainland, on Vancouver Island where we are, the climate is so mild. We enjoy really mild winters. So a dual fuel heat pump is not really necessary, not as much as, on in the interior, and but it is an option to integrate gas with a heat pump. And then the second type of heat pump is a really popular one. It's called a ductless mini split heat pump. And as the name says, it can be used without any ductwork. It works the exact same way as a central system, but it usually comes with a smaller outdoor unit, and then it's often connected to those indoor heads that you've probably seen before that are mounted on the top of the wall to provide zonal heating. So you can have one or multiple indoor heads in different parts of the home. But among the mini splits, there's even ducted versions. So let's take a look at this home. The reason why the mini splits are so popular is because there's all kinds of different options that you have here. So for this home, you got the outdoor unit, and it has 3 refrigerant lines. One of them connects to an indoor head in a larger living room, dining room situation. And then it has 2 more refrigerant lines that connect to mini ducts in the attic here that will connect to the odd bedroom. So when you have those mini ducts that are usually installed in an attic or a crawl space, they can look something like this. So you see with a mini split, you have all kinds of different options that might be a good solution for your specific home. Those types of heat pumps, they come with all kinds of different names. Sometimes they're called mini splits or multi splits when there's multiple heads, but sometimes they're just called split system, but they all pretty much refer to the same thing. And for both ducted and mini split heat pumps, we got cold climate heat pumps. So they work the same way, but they work efficiently in conditions even down to -25 degrees Celsius. Again, for your area, a cold climate heat pump is not necessary. However, it is an option because those heat pumps are basically super high efficiency heat pumps that have a very, very powerful compressor, and they can maintain an efficiency of 200% even at -18 degrees without any supplemental heating system. And 200% efficiency, that's still twice as efficient as electric baseboards or a high efficiency gas furnace. So if you're wondering, ducted heat pump, ductless heat pump, what's the better choice? It really depends on a bunch of different factors, especially because every home is so unique. However, generally speaking, often a central ducted heat pump is a really great idea if you have a gas or electric furnace and your ductwork is in really good shape and very airtight, and you like that sort of central type of heating, then why not go with a central system? However, there's also a ton of homes that don't have any ductwork, that have electric baseboards or even, a wood stove. So it would be very costly to install the ductwork throughout the whole house. For those types of heat pumps, a mini split is a great idea because, you can install those indoor heads. Mini splits are also awesome for homes that have rental suites or in-law suites, or that simply want to, include different heating temperatures in different rooms. Okay, so let's jump into the heat pump myths, or what I like to call them too is just concerns that people have before they install heat pumps, questions that we do get a lot. First and foremost, a lot of people are worried about the installation cost of a heat pump. And there's a lot of numbers here, so let me quickly explain this to you. What we got here is the equipment installation cost range of what gas furnaces and heat pumps can cost. And you see that, the range is actually pretty broad for both systems because the cost always depends. It's unfortunately an it depends kind of answer because, how large is the home and what kind of system do you install? How big is the system? What brand and so on. So we got an average here for both systems, but you got to take that with a grain of salt because depending on the home and the system, your heat pump or your gas furnace could be a lot lower or a lot higher than that. But what I can say beyond the it highly depends is that the rebates for heat pumps are absolutely amazing at the moment. Of course, we're going to go into detail about that later, but the rebates are so great that for many, many people, after rebates, the cost of a heat pump is very comparable to the cost of a gas furnace. In many cases, the heat pump cost is actually covered by the rebates. So that's really great news. And by purchasing a heat pump, you then also get that 2-in-1 heating and cooling system. And when you move away from a fossil fuel, you personally really reduce your own carbon footprint in your home drastically. Another concern is heat pumps and noise. So a lot of people are worried about the noise levels of heat pumps, which is very fair, especially the older generations of heat pumps were very noisy. Modern heat pumps have decibel ratings of about 50 to 60%.
Evan, you don't want to.
Oh, I think someone's okay. 50 to 60%, sorry, decibels. And I do want to say that real quick though, that 60 decibels are actually twice as loud as 50. So even a few decibels make a huge difference in noise. So if that is a concern to you, then definitely talk to your contractor about the decibel ratings of the heat pump that they're proposing to you. In comparison, a dryer is between 60 and 70 decibels, or a toilet flushing about more than 75 decibels. So quite a bit louder. The newer heat pumps, they are very quiet because they have high efficiency compressors. There's lots of solutions where you place a heat pump. And in fact, the city of Vancouver has a really great kind of installation guide for heat pumps, specifically in regards to noise. That installation guide will be made available for you after the webinar. And there's great tips. So they discuss where a heat pump can be placed. Most commonly, some municipalities have bylaws around that. You wouldn't place it underneath a bedroom window or too close to the neighbor, ideally not in the front yard, and so on. And contractors can work with a lot of great little tricks to make a heat pump even quieter by putting it on kind of those rubber mats or working with fences or hedges around the heat pump. Some people are worried that heat pumps, because they're kind of a different type of heating system, that they require a lot more maintenance, which is not true. Pretty much every heating system requires regular maintenance, except for maybe electric baseboards. But really for a heat pump, it is important to just schedule a maintenance appointment with an installer every year or two, just to make sure that everything's fine with the refrigerant and everything's running smoothly. And a very, very common concern, very, very common question that we get is, what will my heating bills be like after installing a heat pump? And while I completely understand that people would want to know that before installing a heat pump, unfortunately, it's this "it depends" answer, because it is the truth. The operating cost of a heat pump will highly depend on so many different factors. So it will depend on the type of heat pump that you get, the efficiency ratings for heating and cooling, the size, the capacity of the heat pump. It will definitely in large depend on, how large is your home, what's the layout of your home, and also specifically, is your home well insulated? Is it very drafty? Are the windows single pane? And of course, also the occupant behavior of how you use the heat pump is all that affects the operating cost. So it's really hard to say or even give ballpark answers. But what I can tell you is that you will expect changes to your hydro bill one way or another, because if you're switching from a fossil fuel to an electric heating system, then now that you're using electricity to heat and or cool a home, your electricity consumption will increase. However, that is offset by a decrease in your fossil fuel consumption. And as I mentioned in the beginning, fossil fuel heating will become less and less attractive because the carbon tax is steadily increasing. And of course, if you do heat with electricity and you switch to a heat pump, you will likely see a decrease in your electric consumption because heat pumps are so much more efficient than baseboards or electric furnaces. It will definitely depend on the efficiency of the heat pump that you buy. So, buying a cold climate heat pump will definitely reduce the operating costs. Look at the heating and cooling rates. The good thing is that most of the rebate programs, they require high efficiency heat pumps. So if your heat pump qualifies for a rebate, it will probably be very efficient. And it also totally depends on the quality of installation. A heat pump needs to be sized for the home, so have the proper capacity for your home and must be well installed. And one thing that a lot of people forget that is crucial for lower operating costs has nothing to do with your heat pump itself. It has all to do with your building envelope. So when we talk about building envelope, what we mean is, what are the insulation levels of your home? Is your home nice and airtight or very drafty? And what are your windows like? Because you could install the most efficient, best, top of the line heat pump in the world. If you install that in a home that's poorly insulated and kind of leaky, then that won't help you at all. And you end up heating basically the outdoors and pay a lot more on your energy bills. So that's why we always say building envelope first. Yeah, just basically summarize the slide. Lower operating costs are achieved by buying a high efficiency heat pump from a qualified installer that is a quality installation and that has been installed in a home that's efficient. So those are really, really important things you need to know before you buy a heat pump. Maintenance, of course, does affect the operation costs. Really regularly, all you need to do is replace indoor filters or clean them of dust and pollen, especially after forest fire season. Seasonally, you want to make sure that you clear the outdoor unit of any debris, leaves, snow, dirt, especially after winter storms and things like that. And then, like I said earlier, schedule that servicing appointment once a year. Earlier, I also mentioned the set it and forget it principle. And this is something that's really, really good to know in terms of operating a heat pump and operating cost. A lot of people think, oh, I got this really efficient heating system, so now I'm going to make it even more efficient by turning it off completely when I leave the house, and then I'm going to turn it back on when I come back. But those people don't know that that is actually counterproductive in terms of efficiency for a heat pump. Because instead of burning a fuel and basically getting up to 100% right away, like a gas furnace would, a heat pump has to absorb heat from one place, pump it through the compressor, and then move it into the home. And that process to get to a certain temperature level can actually take quite a while. And that doesn't mean that your heat pump can't heat the home to 21, 22, or whatever degrees you want. It just means that it takes longer and it has to work to get to that temperature level. So that's why a heat pump uses this set it and forget it principle. You want to ideally choose your preferred temperature level and leave it at that, and don't fiddle around with it too much. It doesn't mean that you can't turn up and down the temperature by a bit, for example, during the night. That won't really cause any damage or anything. It's just that it runs the most efficiently if you leave it at a certain temperature level. And our last myth here is, we hear it all the time, heat pumps don't work in cold weather, which is absolutely not true. There's all kinds of ranges of heat pumps. I mentioned there's cold climate heat pumps and normal heat pumps, but there are really great examples all over North America of cold climate heat pumps that heat as low as minus 25 degrees, like this one here in Colorado. Not extremely relevant for us here in southern BC, but it's really good for you to know that, you know, here in New England, in the States, they use heat pumps, and here in Canada, actually on the other side, on the other coast, in Nova Scotia, there's a lot of heat pump installations, which is great to see, and their winters are definitely a little bit rougher than ours. All right, so now you might be convinced to get a heat pump, but here's some tips that I want to share with you that you should know before buying a heat pump. And I kind of went into that a little bit earlier, but I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to really do the homework and get your heat pump through a qualified installer and getting multiple quotes. We know that at the moment heat pump installers are very busy, but it's still really worth to gather quotes just to compare what types of heat pumps do they install, what are the installation costs, how knowledgeable are those contractors about the rebates, and so on. House as a system, that's what I mentioned earlier, building envelope first, because your whole home works as a system and different upgrades affect each other. So when you install a heat pump in a really leaky, under-insulated home, that, you know, you're not doing yourself a favor by doing that. So make sure that your home is properly insulated and airtight before you get any new heating system. And a really great way to start is by doing an EnerGuide home evaluation. That's an unbiased, standardized process developed by the government to assess your homes. And it's really a very comprehensive energy assessment of your home to figure out what are the priorities area I need to upgrade in which order. So when you install a heat pump, where do you find those contractors? And I will introduce this website to you in greater detail in a second here. But on the CleanBC Better Homes website, there is a contractor search tool. It's really great. You can just select heat pump and then type in your municipality like Port Coquitlam, and there will be a list of heat pump contractors that went through additional best practices training. At the moment, you don't need to work with one of those contractors to get rebates. However, starting for installations on July 1st and later, you will have to work with a registered contractor to get provincial rebates. But that's a really, really great place to start. And we're about to jump into the rebates. I'm sure you're all very curious what's out there. Quickly gonna take a sip of water because we're in for a ride. Okay, before we talk about rebates, I quickly want to mention that there's amazing rebates out there at the moment, a lot of rebates. But the rebates that we're discussing today are available as of today, April 28th, 2022. So if you're watching this later, definitely check out the resources that I'm gonna introduce to you, because rebates come and go and change. And the other thing that I want to say is we don't have a lot of time to discuss all those great rebates. So you will probably find yourself a little bit overwhelmed by all this information, but that's totally fine, because I will introduce those resources where you can ask for help or read up on this. Yeah, and you will get links to all those rebate programs. So the main information that I got here is, what you should know is there's two major rebate programs out there at the moment. The first one are our provincial CleanBC rebates. And the second one is a federal program, so it's Canada-wide, and it's called Canada Greener Homes Grant. Both programs offer rebates for heat pumps. They're totally separate, have nothing to do with each other. But the great news is you can actually access both for up to 100% of the cost of your heat pump. And we're going to get started with the provincial one. this is a lot of numbers. Don't worry too much about it. I'll quickly explain it. It kind of just outlines the different rebates that are available for different scenarios. On the left-hand side, where's my mouse? You can see the different heat pump types. And then over here, you have an estimated total rebate amount through both federal and provincial program for switching from electricity. So from electric baseboards or an electric furnace, you can get up to $7,000 at the moment for a heat pump. And for switching from a fossil fuel, like natural gas, at the moment you can really get great rebates of up to $11,000 from both programs. But where do you find all this information? So I really want to introduce to you this resource. It's really your one-stop shop. It's called the Clean BC Better Homes program. And this is a provincially funded program that was designed for British Columbians to really find all the information around energy efficiency upgrades and renovations in one spot. And it's also an unbiased resource. So on this website, you can find all kinds of information about heat pumps and insulation, windows. You can find energy advisors and contractors, and they have that rebate search tool that you'll see in a second. So it's really great because instead of going to the BC Hydro and Fortis and municipal websites, you got it all in one on one page. And the best thing about it is it comes with actual people that you can talk to. So the Clean BC Better Homes program has an energy coaching service. And that's a really great team of energy coaches who you can call toll-free from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. This is the phone number. And they really know their stuff about the rebates out there. They can answer your questions about where do I get started? What type of heat pumps are there? And how do I get the rebates and how many rebates are out there? So highly recommend calling those energy coaches, especially when you find yourself a little bit overwhelmed by all the information of this webinar. So I just mentioned the rebate search tool. It's really neat. You can go on that on the Clean BC Better Homes website. You type in your municipality and you tell them how your home is currently heated. And then you get a long list of all kinds of upgrades that, rebates that you could be eligible for. So let's say you're a big fan of those mini split heat pumps and you can just click on there. It takes you to a summary page that has absolutely all the information that you need for mini splits, qualifying product lists, deadlines, application steps, and so on. And if you get a little bit overwhelmed or have questions about it, you just call an energy coach. So when we talk about the provincial Clean BC rebates first, I just quickly want to remind you that those rebates are only for eligible homes. So that's single family side-by-side row homes or mobile homes on a permanent foundation. They're not available for multi-unit residential buildings or condos, high rises. And the heat pump needs to be on a qualifying product list. So it needs to meet certain efficiency requirements. And it also has to become the primary space heating system of the home. So you can't just install a heat pump for air conditioning. On the next couple slides, I will quickly show you the different rebate amounts just through Clean BC for different scenarios. So if your home is heated with electric baseboards or an electric furnace, you can get $1,000 for mini splits and $2,000 for central ducted systems. That rebate comes from BC Hydro, so they have you do their eligibility tool first. On that tool, you just need to provide your BC Hydro account number and the square footage of the home, and it will tell you if you qualify or not based on your electricity consumption. And the rebates for fossil fuel heated homes are quite a bit bigger from Clean BC. So regardless of mini split or central system, the rebate is $6,000. Absolutely amazing right now. And there's a few different types of heat pumps, like the dual fuel one that uses fossil fuel as a backup. The rebate is lower, so you get more if you go all electric. And then this type of heat pump that we didn't discuss, which is an air to water heat pump for in-floor heating, for example, there's also $3,000. Some homes have to upgrade their electrical panel when they switch away from a fossil fuel to accommodate the heat pump. And that can be quite costly. So the Clean BC offers a $500 rebate for that. So that were the rebates. And what rebates mean is really you pay up front and then you get reimbursed. But some people prefer financing. And for homes that switch away from a fossil fuel to a heat pump, they can choose to finance their heat pump instead. So it's a really great option. It's 0% financing over 5 years for up to $40,000, although I hope the heat pump wouldn't cost that much. And you have to work with a special finance registered contractor that you can find on the website, because they are set up to, or they're registered to set you up with that loan. And among the Clean BC rebates, there's this really great little add-on program. It's called the Group Purchase Rebate. And the Group Purchase Rebate really just rewards groups of homeowners, like neighbors or different municipalities have groups and things like that, who switch from a fossil fuel to a heat pump around the same time. When you join a group or start a group, and you got a certain amount of people together who install a heat pump, each member of the group gets an additional rebate chunk on top of their normal heat pump rebate. So that's a really great little add-on. And lastly, among the Clean BC rebates, there's an income qualified version, very new. That program's new. It's awesome because if you fall in one of those two income brackets here, based on the adults living, all the household members in a home, then you can get the Clean BC rebates, or basically an enhanced version where it covers 60 or 95% of the installation cost. For heat pumps specifically, that is up to $9,500 for income qualified homes. So that's really great. You have to register for the program first, and you have to work with a specific contractor who is registered with this program, because the way it works is they basically take that rebate amount that you qualify for from your invoice, so you don't even have to pay for that chunk. So you don't have to pay up front and then get reimbursed. Really, really great option. That was it in terms of Clean BC. So quickly, the Canada Greener Homes Grant. So this is the second huge program. It's a federal program, started last year. And what this program does, it can give you up to $5,000 towards different types of upgrades. That could be insulation or a heat pump or windows or solar PV. It just maxes out at $5,000. They also give you $600 towards an EnerGuide home evaluation, because for this program specifically, you have to do an EnerGuide evaluation before you do any upgrades, and you have to do a post-retrofit EnerGuide evaluation after you finish your renovations. So that's why you get some money back for that from them. And for heat pumps, the grants range between $2,500 and $5,000. You can get both the Clean BC rebates and Canada Greener Homes up to 100% of your installation cost. And if you wonder, how do I maximize my rebates? How do I get both programs? Well, the best way to do it is to start with an EnerGuide home evaluation, because it is a requirement for Canada Greener Homes. And you can find those energy advisors on the Better Homes website. So that's betterhomesbc.ca /EA for Energy Advisor. It's a search tool where you plug in your location and it gives you a list of energy advisors. It's definitely worth it shopping around because energy advisors are also very popular and in high demand at the moment, and it's really a good idea to compare rates and availability. And you will then have to register for the federal program. And we always just recommend, honestly, once you've done your evaluation, you get your reports for the EnerGuide evaluation, call that energy coach service, go on betterhomesbc.ca, check out all the different rebates, and get in touch with an energy coach to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row, to know what your next steps are, to ensure that your heat pump qualifies, because it is a lot of information to navigate. The reason for that is because both programs have a lot of their own requirements. They also have their own deadlines, and that's why it's a really good idea to work with an energy coach and make sure that you got it all together. As I mentioned many times, don't be shy to contact an energy coach under this toll-free number or shoot them an email. Canada Greener Homes also has their own client services support, and they also have an email address, a very, very long email address. So really there is help out there, and I highly recommend taking advantage of that. But with that, we made it. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time. I really, truly hope that you know more about heat pumps than you did an hour ago. And I see that there were a lot of questions in the chat, but with that, I will hand it over to Sam for some questions.
Thank you. I will first stop by ending our recording.